Now then, here are the multiple of the 5,600 that come to Aberdeen. That's right here, okay? 231 over $1 billion in 5. Now then, if we add all of these numbers up, 2.5 billion a year, 10 billion, 10.1 billion in 5 years. Congratulations. That's a hell of an accomplishment. I wish our folks in Washington, D.C. would wake up and say, this is what we can go do. There's not any government money in that. This is what we can do if we get out of the way of small business people and let them go. Questions?
Can you expand on the state impact this plant will have?
No. Yes, I can. The easiest answer to that question is always no, I can't. So, the impact here, I mean, you've got another packing plant about this size just across the border in Iowa. It's in Nebraska. Another one in Schuyler, Nebraska. Okay, and if you look at all of those packing plant, all of those feedlots in North Dakota and in Minnesota, those cattle all come through here. All of that corn, all of that comes through that interstate over there and goes south. It doesn't go south anymore. It's going to come right out here and stop. That's the biggest impact. It's not just cattle. It's the corn. It's the soybeans. It's the people that take to make all of that. This is the biggest agricultural engine in the state. And you're going to reap the benefit right here. The tax revenue here, I didn't put that up there, but it's $14 million a year, additional taxes. The big purchase items, the big ticket items that go to the rest, I mean from the tri-state area, are an additional 11 million. I didn't add them to the 14 because it's in 3 states, different counties, different communities. So it's a lot of tax dollars. Yeah, you need schools and you need roads, but you've got money to coming to help do that too. I think this is an exciting time. It's a resurgence of growth in a regional agricultural community. After World War II, our agriculture was centralized. Okay? And 85% of the fed beef cattle in this country are killed in 24 plants. And if you draw a crooked line from Amarillo, Texas to Des Moines, Iowa, make that big curve like that, about 20 of those 24 plants fall on that line. Okay? And all of the corn and all of the cattle get hauled to that line. What's wrong with that? That was built on 50-cent gasoline or 50-cent diesel. That dog don't hunt anymore. It's 10 times that. And if the Arabs have their way, much higher than that. So what this does is this brings all that back to a local community so that we're not blowing our brains out on diesel. We're building infrastructure in our community. It becomes a regionalization of the food supply. And if you put that picture of the 3 states up there, the thing that the big advantage that you have there is the corn and the ethanol plants and the feedlots. Okay? Where does all that go to be harvested? Where does it go to cha-ching in the dollar? And to make the real cha-ching is when you value add it. Okay? And all of that's being done outside of the state. Remember when I talk about the way the arrows go? Where is corn sold? Corn is sold along that line from Amarillo to Des Moines. That's where the cattle are killed, so that's where they're fed. Where do the cattle out of the state go? To the feedlots in that area. Arrows going out of the state. When you bring this plant here, you take all those arrows and twist them around and point them at Aberdeen. I do presentations like this for a living. And when you see that on paper and you twist those arrows around, people have no earthly idea what they're saying. But the most concrete thing I can say is you're making a place for your kids to stay in this town and work here, not in Dallas, Texas, or St. Louis, or Denver. Yes, sir.
We have about 26,000 people in Aberdeen. We also have the surrounding community. What type of projections do you have for 5 years or for 10 years for population with the new beef plant and the jobs that are created because of it? And where do you see us going?
Well, if you don't get a lot bigger, you're in trouble. The surrounding area, the unknown part of this, okay, and every community is different. We know we're going to have 8,300 people coming into the area, okay, and I think my numbers are conservative. I'm convinced of that. 8,300 people, and it's a good livable wage. So how many of those, and this is an inexpensive place to live, how many of those people are going to come here and be two household working families, or how many of them are going to be single? If you just take 2.2 times the, now I've got 6 kids, not 0.2, so if you do that, I think this area will double in population in 15 to 20 years. And I say 15 to 20 because I'm 65 years old and I'm probably not going to live to be 85. So, and if I do, I won't care anyway. So you can come look me up in 20 years. And, no, but I really think that's probably the case. I think people we have moved to cities for so long that cities have not, and jobs in cities have not become, they're not sustainable. So we're going to see a reversal of trends, and we're going to see population go back to agricultural communities. If you look at this tri-state area, there is no better proof than this area that the United States could become the next OPEC for food production. And if you go look at food production across the world, I really think what's driving the price of corn, the price of corn in China is $9.75 a bushel, $3 more than here. And the price of beans is $21 a bushel, $6 or $7 more than in the United States. And who's raising that? It's not a bunch of farmers with great big tractors. It's a bunch of peasants that farm 2 mu. MU. And a mu is, there's 3 mu to an acre. Okay? And guess what? They don't have tractors. They have a grubbing hoe. and they work 365 days a year, hard. They live on less than $100 a year, but they own their own cows, they milk their cows, they raise their own chickens, they take the eggs to town and sell them. And who does that sound like? That sounds like what we did in this country in the 1930s through the Depression and through the war years. So they have an agricultural economy that is booming, and it is those people that are spending more money on protein, buying eggs, milk, and meat for their children. Other questions?
So would you say Aberdeen's going to be a boom town?
It'd be hard not to say that. I think, you know, if you drive up and down, when my wife and I drove into this place, we'd never been here. Yeah, I had, but had not spent a lot of time in the community, and we spent about a week here. And when you drive in, what's the first thing you see? You see all of the implement dealers, okay? I don't think you're going to get a lot more tractor stores. You don't need another John Deere dealership, okay? You're already farming all of the farmland you're probably going to farm. But you're going to add all of the infrastructure that goes to that. You're going to see trucks. You need a truck terminal. You don't put 500 trucks on the road and not have a base for them to operate from. And fuel. You're going to have truck drivers. So, are you going to become a boom town in relation to Las Vegas? No, probably not. Not unless you get real carried away with the entertainment idea. But I think, relative speaking, for South Dakota, you're going to be the hottest thing in town. Hottest thing in the state. Yes, sir.
You mentioned ethanol plants with just a little tinge of affection. You want to expound a little bit about the relationship between corn production, ethanol enhanced value production, and livestock production?
Absolutely not. I wouldn't go there on a bet. No, I will.
Well, the reason I bring it up.
No,
is
and I'm being
the reason I
smart.
bring it up is because, you know, there's some conversation that you hear nationally and so forth that ethanol production takes corn out of the food stream, which is not the case.
Okay.
Production of ethanol actually winds up with one of its most important byproducts. It's not necessarily a byproduct, it's a component of the dried distiller's grain, which is an enhanced value-added food product for livestock.
We get a lot of this. We get a lot of this guff. You probably get a lot of this guff from people in Texas, okay? And you know why? Because they're envious of your cattle and they're envious of your plants. You have to understand. You have to have a value-added mentality to understand the production of ethanol. And the way it becomes part of a continuous cycle to feed distiller's grain to cattle. And the cattle feeders that I talk to here are basically farmer feeders. They're not the big corporate feedlots. They're the farmer feeders that either feed their own cattle or have fed the cattle that from the people that they know in Montana, and they've fed them for the last 20 years. They're going to feed them a long time. They're going to feed them a lot of their own corn, and they're using the ethanol byproduct, the distiller's grain, as a protein source. So they're still feeding corn. They're using the ethanol, candidly, and probably instead of soybeans, as many soybeans. So it becomes a value-added circle. These long-fed cattle have a better digestive system with distiller's grain because everybody gets along with a little bit of alcohol, don't they? So, I'm being facetious. But not many people understand that. In China, it's against the law to do distiller's grain or to ferment. Now, if people are going to drink it, it's fine. Okay, you can make Jack Daniels out of it, but you can't make gasoline out of it. That's because China is a country four times the population of the United States. They're about the same geographic size, but we have 19% of our land is arable land, and we have a fourth the people that they do, and they have 10% arable land. So you're right, it is part of the value-added cycle. If you cut it down and just look at making ethanol from corn, okay? This is where this argument goes. If you make an index out of all of the different fermentation products, and an index of 100 is neither creates nor destroys energy. Okay? Creating ethanol from corn winds up at about an index of a 90. That means that it takes more energy to create it than it creates itself. Okay? But when you've done that, you've only looked at the creation of ethanol. You've not put the beef into the cycle. When you do that, it goes to the other side. Now then, there are fermentation plants or fermentation systems out there that rely on cellulotic products, and they're very efficient. They're genetically engineered to be efficient, and they can do, on this same index, 145 to 150. Okay? So, if your plants are not going to, thank you, your ethanol plants here, if fed, are not that efficient. If you put the cattle feeding cycle in it, they are. Not 150, but they get up to around 120 grams. Okay?
Right now, our average age of farmers in the state is about 57, 58. A lot of the farm ground has been torn up to raise corn and soybeans. Well, do you see this as bringing cattle back to a lot of the operations and bringing younger people back into operations?
I think it's going to bring younger people back because the agricultural community will be more vibrant. Okay? The long-term cycle here, how this goes, it's still going to be more profitable on land that will grow corn and soybeans. It's still going to be more profitable to grow corn and soybeans on it than it will be to raise cattle on it, unless you really intensify because, I mean, if you just plant grass, it takes 20 acres of grass to support one cow in this state, okay? And that's good because I ran a ranch in Texas where it took almost a section to support a cow and calf. All right, so it's always going to be more profitable from an intensity standpoint to do that. You have plenty of grassland in North Dakota, South Dakota. I mean, if you look, it's not right here, but you can haul the calves and haul them a small distance without having to haul them from Florida, okay? If you look at the way the commodity system was built, the commodity system relied on corn from South Dakota, your 70-cent basis. That's because they were hauling it to Texas. They were hauling the cattle from Florida to Texas. We kill it, put it in a plant, and then where are the people? People are on all four corners. Okay? People are not in the center of the country. If you look at what that cost, remember that $266 a head? If you look at that cost, I've done that on a national basis, it's like $450 a head in transportation cost. And beef can't afford that. The industry, the infrastructure can't afford that. So these great big mega plants that were built to handle diluted cost, the energy cost, if you haul a steer, a fed steer, 1,000 miles, okay, it costs $116 a head. In a packing plant, makes 20, 25 a head. I went to school at Texas A&M, and even there we know that a bigger truck don't help in that deal. Okay? So, we've got big problems. We've got big changes coming in the way we produce food and the way we export it. And those are not going to be comfortable to some of the great big places. It's going to be much more comfortable here where you have a plant that is sized to match the cattle supply, the corn supply, and the people supply. Because these big plants where we kill 6,000 head a day, they didn't build them and start killing 6,000 head the first day. They built them to kill 2,500 a day. And we snuck them up to 3,000. And then we said, hey, our fixed costs are 55% of our cost. If we just doubled our chill capacity, we could kill twice as many cattle. They did that on 50-cent diesel. Not making the bet that diesel wasn't going to happen. And then they knew that when they did that, they explode their employment base. They built those plants in a community that could supply the people, okay, with reasonable expansion, like MVP is doing here. You probably don't have every person. You've got enough unemployed to fill this plant 3 times. They won't go to work here. It's too cold. There's no windows, and it's hard work. Old man like me wouldn't want to work there. I've done it, but I wouldn't have to do it again. So those people, where they built those plants in a town the size of Aberdeen, only it's in Kansas, and they've already expanded the population like you're going to see here, and now you've got to do it 4 times more. They don't have the infrastructure. So you get a bunch of migrant workers, a bunch of immigrant workers, and you just have to read the news to know what's going on there. That's not because, that's because it was managed improperly to begin with. And they exploded instead of growing. Okay? Other questions?
This is Jenna Reinke with the Artist Leader down in Sioux Falls. I hope I'm not interrupting anybody. I have a hard time hearing the question. But I'm wondering if you can speak to these initial 560 workers. Where do you expect them to come from, and when do you think that we might see the housing to support these extra workers?
Okay. If you look, there are some houses available in the area now, and there are already people working at the plant. A plant like this doesn't build itself, so there are probably 100 people already working there. Well, you're paying 100. How many of them work?
110.
110. Okay, good manager. Told you. So this is not a deal that has happened overnight. It's been building up. When the plant actually opens, about a month before that, it comes to a crescendo. And you're going to see every motel room, every apartment fill up to Capacity Plus, and they'll drive an extra 25 miles. And I already see signs of apartment complexes beginning in the area. You've had some in the past 2 years, but you're getting more. So I think that process has already started. Now, but the other part of that is people are not going to make a big concrete investment to go spend several $1 million on an apartment complex unless they know the people are already here. Or they're not going to want to build rent homes unless they know the people are already here. So that process is beginning. If you look at what my numbers, I mean the projected numbers come up at a multiple of 8.5. The actual count came up at 9.9, a multiple of 9.9. And if you go back and look at where that came from, those additional people come on a secondary growth phase from housing. So, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you for that. If I can jump in here again, can you guys kind of speak to how construction is going and when exactly in the fall the plant is expected to be open?
Well, I can tell you what the projection is. The projection is the end of September, October. They're still meeting those expectations. But I don't work for MVP, so beyond that, David Palmer is here. If he wants to address that, I would let him, but I don't work for them. I know them, but I wouldn't venture that guess. Dave, do you want to address that?
Well, we're still on track for opening the plant this fall. We have,
Can you hear him?
I can't hear. It's too far away.
He's walking up here. He's an old guy too, so I have to give him a chance to get up here.
well, with that, I'm going.
Huh?
Hi, with that. We're still on track to open this fall. We haven't given a specific date, and we are still holding back on that until we've got all of our contracts for construction complete, so we give a very secure one. But we're expecting get this fall.
Okay.
And Mr. Palmer, you have about 100 people employed right now already.
60 direct employees and another 40 through contractors, yes.
Thank you.
But that's going to increase here over the next 45 days quite dramatically.
Typically what a plant does is they start bringing people into the area that they want to work in the production facility in the meat plant, and they bring them in and help them do some of the lifting and some of the labor to lift the plant and get it up over the top. So you'll begin to see that soon. Other questions? I think you're on the verge of a very exciting opportunity. I wish everybody, every community in the United States had this in front of them. Thank you.